It has been suggested to me that for my next Billy the Kid video, yes, Billy the Kid, they get most of my views and drive up my subscriptions, thank you very much, and feel free to subscribe right here. As I was saying, it was suggested to me that the next famous outlaw to go up against Billy should be Belle Starr. To be honest, I don't know much about Belle except she was an outlaw. But after checking her exploits out, I discovered that Belle Starr might be one of the most fascinating characters out of the Old West. So thanks for the suggestion, and let's get to it. First, a recap on Billy the Kid and his exploits. William Bonney, also known as Billy the Kid, was a famous outlaw from the Old West who killed lots of men, including lawmen, and knew how to break out of jail. He was part of the Lincoln County Wars in New Mexico and died at the young age of 21 when the sheriff Pat Garrett hunted him down and shot him. Yeah, I know, lots of people think this guy, Brushy Bill Roberts, was Billy the Kid. Let's not go there this time. Way too many discrepancies in that story. Sorry. Now, how does Belle compare to Billy? Quite well, in my opinion. She experienced way more than Billy did during her lifetime. So let's learn more about her. Belle Starr was born Myra Maybelle Shirley on her family's farm near Carthage, Missouri on February 5, 1848. Her mother, who was the third wife of her father, John Shirley, was a Hatfield. Yes, those Hatfields, of the Hatfields and McCoys. You can look them up if you want, but it was really about a feud between two families that involved a lot of revenge killing. They weren't real bright. But Belle Starr was a Hatfield. Belle, or May as her family called her, had an older brother named Bud Shirley, who joined the guerrilla group in Missouri known as the Bushwhackers. They were the ones who resisted joining the Northern Army during the Civil War. They also raided Kansas a lot. Lots of killing back then. I only bring Bud up because he's the one who taught Belle how to ride a horse and shoot a gun, which came in handy back then. They say Belle was a spy for the Bushwhackers, but nobody really knows. Anyways, Bud got killed, so the family moved to Texas. I guess I should add that Belle was well educated and learned how to play the piano. Not sure Billy could play a piano. When Belle was 18, she married a guy named James Reed, whose family had also come to Texas from Missouri. 2 years later, they had a daughter named Rosie Lee, who we'll get back to in a bit. At some point, Belle's husband James, who was no good at farming, turned to crime. And that's when Belle's legend began. The couple and their infant daughter Rosie Lee got involved with the James Younger gang, who they knew from their bushwhacker days and robbed lots of people. That would be the famous outlaws Frank and Jesse James and Cole Younger and his brothers. At one point, her husband James was wanted for murder in Arkansas, so he and Belle fled to California and ended up in Los Angeles, where James became a professional gambler. Their second child, Eddie, was born there in 1871. They also spent some time in Paso Robles visiting the James gang. Here's a couple of inhabitants I know in San Luis Obispo County. Then Belle and James went back east and hung out in Missouri, Arkansas, Texas, and Oklahoma. This time they fell in with the Starr gang, who was also notorious, and continued their thieving. Now this is where history gets a little muddled and fact becomes fiction. Some say Belle's job was just to harbor the outlaws, which she made a pretty good living at. But there are others who believe she took part in the murders and crimes. These gangs, who robbed 9 banks and 8 trains, were said to have killed 32 people during their spree. Belle, who was a crack shot and rode side saddle on her horse, was probably right there. She would ride her horse dressed in a black velvet habit, and she always carried 2 pistols with a cartridge belt around her waist. Belle also had a sense of style and wore nice dresses and plumed hat. She always looked nice for her pictures, don't you think? Unfortunately for Belle, her husband James was finally killed in 1874. One story says Belle married a member of the Younger gang, Bruce Younger, but it only lasted 3 weeks. Not long after, Belle reconnected with the Starr gang and married one of them, Sam Starr, in 1880. Sam, who was Cherokee, took Belle to his reservation in Oklahoma to live. A perfect place for outlaws like the James Younger gang to hide, if you ask me. Her marriage to Sam also made her the aunt of Henry Starr, another notorious outlaw who robbed banks but also starred in a silent movie, believe it or not. He ended up dying in another bank heist after his Hollywood debut, so I guess his movie didn't do too well. Now this is when Belle Reed became Belle Starr, and around those parts she was notorious. But after a few more years of thieving, it all caught up to her and Sam when they were arrested and convicted of stealing horses in 1883. They were sentenced by the infamous hanging judge, Isaac Parker, and they were sent to spend 9 months in prison in Detroit. They say Belle was a model prisoner. Sam, of course, did hard labor. After they got out, Sam went back to crime and was shot and killed by his own cousin, a deputy named Frank West, who also died because Sam was able to shoot him too. That's right, the two cousins killed each other. Dumb. This is in 1886, and I think that's when Belle realized crime doesn't pay. To stay on a reservation, she married a relative of Sam's, Jim July, who also took the last name of Starr, and he was 15 years younger than Belle. Good for Belle. It's usually the other way around. Belle quit harboring outlaws and tried to make a life for herself. Unfortunately, her new husband, Jim July, was arrested, but Belle refused to defend him. She obviously wasn't very faithful because she was connected to several more lovers during this time. There was a Jack Spaniard, a Jim French, and this guy here, Blue Duck. That's right, his name's Blue Duck. She liked him young, apparently. So what happened to Belle Starr? Unfortunately, or tragically I should say, Belle, who was riding her horse home from a dance, was shot in the back with her own shotgun by some accounts. And whoever did it made sure she was dead because they shot her in the face after she fell off her horse. Ugh, it sounds a little messy. I say whoever did it because there were no witnesses. There were 4 suspects though. One was her husband July, who apparently was out of jail. Another was Edgar Watson, who was a sharecropper on Belle's land and was also wanted for murder in Florida. The story was that after a little too much to drink, Watson asked Belle to dance, but she said no. So on her way home, he shot her. This was on February 3rd, 1889, just 2 days before Belle's 41st birthday. Watson was arrested and tried, but acquitted, they say, although an article at the time said they just let him go for a lack of a witness. So Belle's murder went unsolved. The other 2 suspects were her kids, Eddie, her youngest, and Rosie Lee, who we'll get back to, I promise. They say Eddie might have shot her because she beat him the day before for mistreating her horse. He was recovering from a gun wound at the time and would be going to prison soon. Not clear on what Rosie Lee's motivation might have been. They buried Belle next to her log cabin on the reservation. Her cabin is long gone, but Belle's grave is still there. Now, if you ask me, Belle Starr lived way more life than Billy the Kid. Look at all the people she knew and hung out with. The Bushwhackers, the James gang, the Younger gang, the Reed gang, and all the Starr gang. I mean, she married 2 of them, and she was a Hatfield on top of that. Belle was right in the middle of it all. But let's see how she stacks up with Billy. Billy killed the most, obviously. He's got you. Belle has the best pictures, though. Billy has just one. I'm really sick of looking at it. Let me see. Books, movies, TV. Yeah, sorry, Belle. Billy got you there. He was really famous, even when he was alive. I should tell you, though, there was one movie, Belle Starr, starring Gene Tierney and Randolph Scott. That was a big hit when it came out in 1941. Gene Tierney, one of my favorites. But talk about Hollywood rewriting history. Randolph Scott played Sam Starr, Belle's second husband, who was a Cherokee. And it was all set during the Civil War when Belle was just a kid, like 12 years old. And it wasn't because they didn't know anything about Belle, because a dime novel came right out right after she died that was written by a Richard Fox and made her a household name. Which is a good time to tell you about Rosie Lee, Belle's daughter. Rosie was 21 when her mother was shot, and right afterward the novel came out. Belle Starr, the Bandit Queen, which made Belle famous, and it only cost 25 cents. So, trying to ride on her dead mother's newfound celebrity, Rosie Lee changed her name to Pearl Starr. Belle's son, Eddie, was sent to prison in 1889 for stealing horses, so needing money to get him out of jail, Pearl turned to prostitution. And how did she get him out? A presidential pardon. Yep, she got the President of the United States to pardon her brother in 1893. I think it was Benjamin Harrison who did it. Afterwards, Eddie became a deputy in Fort Smith, Arkansas because he was good with a gun. He served honorably, but unfortunately died in a shootout in an Oklahoma bar in 1896 when he tried to arrest someone. He got the barrel of a shotgun too, just like his mother. So, that was the end of Eddie at the age of 25. He was a fascinating character himself. Pearl also made enough money to buy a tombstone for her mother, Belle. Here it is. I like the star and the horse and the bell. That's really nice. She also wrote a very nice poem. Shed not for her the bitter tear, nor give the heart to vain regret. 'Tis but the casket that lies here, the gem that filled it sparkles yet. Kind of fits. Now, Pearl's new profession, prostitution, must have been pretty good, because over the years she opened and ran a bunch of brothels and saloons in and around Arkansas. She operated her enterprises from the 1890s until World War I, but the good people of Fort Smith, Arkansas decided to pass some new laws and shut down the brothels. The authorities looked the other way for a while, but eventually arrested Pearl and asked her to leave town, which she did when she moved to Douglas, Arizona in 1921. She died not long after in 1925. Pearl was 53 when she died and had known all the same famous outlaws her mother did. She grew up with them. Like her mother, Pearl also had several husbands over the years and a bunch of illegitimate kids. One of Pearl's daughters, Flossie, wrote articles about Pearl and her grandmother Belle for the Dallas Morning News in the 1930s. So Belle Starr was famous in her own right. Now, back to Belle and Billy. Belle obviously had a better love life, and 4 husbands to boot. In a gunfight together? I'd have to call it a draw because it never happened. They both died with their boots on, although in Belle's case it was probably a nice pair of shoes. Best piano player has to be Belle. Who lived longer? Belle, age 40. Billy, 21. Arrest? I only found 4 arrests for you, Belle, so Billy's got you there. Okay, let's count them up. Whoa, sorry, Billy. You just got taken down a notch. Belle Starr, Queen of the Outlaws, is our new champion. Now, does this mean I'm not doing any more Billy the Kid videos? Well, that depends. Let's see how this video does before I make any decisions. Belle, you need lots of people to watch this to stay ahead of Billy. That's all I got.